Hello everybody and welcome to Cornhill, which is traditionally known as the centre of Bridgwater. Now today I'm going to be doing something that I guarantee you have never seen on YouTube before. I'm going to be travelling from the centre of Bridgwater, known as Cornhill, to the centre of London, known as Trafalgar Square, by local bus. This took around 15 hours and there was a lot of planning and backups involved just in case we missed any buses, which we almost did. However, just to let you know, it did go pretty smoothly. Now, I actually had to get from the centre of Bridgwater to Bridgwater bus station, and by doing that I had to actually walk and not get a local bus. So I don't know if you'd count this as cheating or not. I wouldn't, since we did have to walk between stops in other places. Anyway, my first bus was the 0730 First West of England 375 service with a final destination at Bristol bus station. Just after going in Asda to get some bits and bobs, here is the bus arriving, which is an ex-First Wales or First Cymru AGL Enviro 400 MMC. These MMCs are alright, however they're a bit sluggish to be honest. I'll be taking this to Wales bus station, which is about an hour and a half into the journey. Here I am leaving Bridgwater bus station on the first out of around Wales buses. This was the 0730 departure towards Bristol bus station. To get to Bristol bus station, I think it takes around about 3 or 4 hours. However, I'd only be taking this as far as Wales, which was about halfway into the journey towards Bristol. This service operates every 2 hours and is a crucial link between Bridgwater and East Somerset. Here we are passing St John Street, which is located very close to the railway station.
Next stop, Redgate Medical Centre. Next stop, Bridgwater Community Hospital.
Here I am passing Bridgwater Community Hospital. Nobody got on here, however later on in the day a few people do use the services that serve this hospital, which is actually quite a major one in the local area, considering that the nearest other hospitals, or the nearest other major hospitals, are Musgrove Park Hospital in Taunton, or the West Mendip Community Hospital in Glastonbury, which isn't exactly major. I would discover many things on this trip, and one of them is that a lot of bus services, no matter what kind of bus service they are, whether or not they're a suburban, rural or express airport bus service, any bus service can and pretty much does serve the local hospital, since it can be quite useful for local residents and passengers alike. This is where the old Royal Ordnance Factory was located, and this is where a new multi-million pound electric car factory was going to be located. However, building works have stalled a bit because the electric car sales are plummeting rapidly. So who knows what's going to happen to this site. Hopefully it won't turn into another massive housing estate. Bridgwater already has loads of these. Passing through Street Town Centre, which is where the Mandip Explorer 37 series of buses branch off. The 374 branches off to Taunton, the 375, which we're currently on, heads back towards Bridgwater, and the 376, which actually has a new Sunday service beyond the street for the first time in many years. It actually used to be the 377, I believe, heads towards Somerset and the Oval. From here onwards, all three of the routes operate at a 30-minute frequency between Street, Wells and Bristol. Here we are passing through Glastonbury Town Centre and High Street, where you can change for a number of local buses to take you across the Mendips. You can also alight here for many weird and interesting shops and restaurants. Arriving into Wells bus station, otherwise known as Princes Road bus station. Here you can change for a number of other bus services across the Mendips, such as the 126 service to Cheddar and Weston-super-Mare, the 67 service to Wedmore, and the 173 service which will take you direct to Bath via Midsummer Norton. However, due to the bus times not working out too well, I'd actually missed the 173 bus by a few minutes. So I actually had to take the 174 bus, which takes a longer route via Shepton Mallet and Midsummer Norton to get to my next destination of Bath. From there, things get a lot more faster and direct.
Next stop, Chamberlain Street.
The scenery along the 174 route is beautiful. Here's a bit of stunning scenery on the route between Wells and Shepton Mallet. The only problem with some of these routes, such as the 174 and the 375, is that some of these double-decker Mandip Explorer buses are not exactly made for some of these narrow lanes across the county. Arriving at the cenotaph in Shepton Mallet. This is where most of the bus services arrive and depart from in the town. Here we can see a Libra Travel ADL Enviro 200 MMC on the 669 service from Glastonbury and Street. I could have used this service, however I didn't really want to wait for ages in Glastonbury, and by the looks of it I would have only just made this service. A lot of independent bus companies such as Libra Travel are starting to purchase newer diesel buses by Alexander Dennis, rather than the small midi-bus Optare Solo SR buses obviously made by Optare, as most of these are actually starting to become quite unreliable now. Here we are departing Shepton Mallet Cenotaph, along with the Libra Travel Adel Enviro 200 MMC on the 669, around 7 minutes late. This was not good for my connection at Bath bus station. I'll explain why when we get closer to the destination. Here we are passing the old railway station for the Somerset and Dorset Joint Railway in Midsummer Norton. This small section of the line in the local area, as well as the railway station at Midsummer Norton itself, has been restored. They hope to open up more of the line in the future. I believe Radstock was also served by this railway line from Bath to the south coast. Here we are leaving Radstock Town Centre at the Victoria Hall on our way to Bath, around 3 to 5 minutes late.
Next stop, Wokingham Road.
Into Peasdown St John, which used to get a regular service operated by summer bus into the centre of Bath. Unlike the Mendip Explorer route which passed through this village, the 175 service operated by summer bus passed through the village centre as well as the housing estates on the outskirts. Unfortunately, a few years ago the service was withdrawn, and so were the rest of the routes operated by summer bus, unless they were taken over by other operators.
This service will terminate here. Please
Here I
take
am
care when
arriving
leaving
into
the bus
Bath bus
and remain
station,
seated
where I
until
then
the
had
bus
two
has come to a
options.
complete
I
stop.
could either run to stand 5 and catch the Fairsaver X31 service that was due off in 1 minute, thanks to my bus arriving around about 1 or 2 minutes early, or I could wait 10 minutes for the slower and more unreliable 231 service, which is often running late into Chippenham, and therefore I would probably miss my 5-minute connection at Chippenham bus station. Thank you. As you can tell, I decided to run for it, and I managed to make the 11 o'clock X31 departure towards Chippenham bus station, which guaranteed me a connection at least until Reading, if not all the way to London. This was formed by a very rare Volvo B5TL Right Eclipse Gemini 3. There aren't very many of these in the southwest, and I believe Fairsaver only have 2 or 3 of these buses, so that made it even rarer. However, I do believe that they have a few other versions of this type of bus in other parts of the country, such as London, and they also have quite a large fleet of these over in Ireland in Dublin. the outskirts of Bath, heading towards Corsham, which is one of the major towns en route towards Chippenham, which both the X31 and the 231 Fairsaver services stop at. Considering how unreliable the B5s with Fairsaver are, I was quite happy to see us roll into Chippenham bus station a little later on, bang on time. Quite often you'll find that these B5s often break down even though they're fairly new buses, and they do not break down in other parts of the country. I think these must be prototypes or something. We are passing through Corsham, which is where the X31 and 231 buses have a little bit of time to lay over and to make up some time if they are late. Corsham also has a local town service and I believe is home to a few Fairsaver trials. Arriving into Chippenham bus station. Now, I'd never been to Chippenham before and I thought the town centre was decent, however the bus station was pretty good. It was very similar to Wales bus station in Somerset, we are now in Wiltshire by the way, and also has a lot of bus services mostly operated by Fairsaver. However, I did see a few coach style vehicles as well as Stagecoach Gold Scania Enviro 400 MMCs on the 55 service, which just by coincidence happens to be our next bus service to take us to Swindon. Here is my next bus arriving into Chippenham bus station, which is a Stagecoach West Scania N250UD ADL Enviro 400 MMC in the Stagecoach Gold livery. This particular Stagecoach Gold livery is branded up for the 55 service, which operates between Chippenham, Colne and Swindon. Because this is a Stagecoach Gold route, it has very comfy seats and a quite nice interior. Here we can see Fairsaver's newest vehicle, which is an ADL Enviro 400 MMC, and just a minute ago you also saw the Enviro 200 with Fairsaver buses that used to be an Enviro 200H. I'm going to be taking this service all the way to Swindon, which takes just over an hour. Passing through Colne town centre. A number of Swindon's bus company routes, which only operate once a day or once a week, pass through the town centre. One of them that I can think of is the X76 service, which operates between Marlborough and Bath. I think there are a few more routes similar to this that operate through the town. As well as this, Stagecoach do operate a number of services around the local area, with one of which being the 55 bus route, which I'm currently on. very historic. However, apart from the town centre, everywhere else, such as the housing estates on the outskirts of the town, just look like a normal town, not a royal town. I think quite a lot of these royal towns, such as Royal Wilton Bassett, as well as Royal Tunbridge Wells, are just basic towns which for some reason just have the royal name. Anyway, here we are on the outskirts of Swindon, passing by the Great Western Outlet Village. Royal Wilton Bassett, I think, used to have a railway station, however, I'm not too sure. Anyway, we're now only about 5 minutes away from Swindon bus station, which, as I found out over the last couple of months, this is one of my favourite places. Well, to be honest with you, I think that was a lot less than 5 minutes. But anyway, here I am arriving at Swindon bus station. Although the bus station is very grotty and isn't really that clean, not really any of the bus stations are. There are very few that are actually clean and quite tidy. However, I do quite like Swindon bus station. It has a lot of features such as toilets, which not many bus stations actually have nowadays. Along with that, it has a waiting area, which is more than what Bridgwater bus station has, and as well as that, it has an office. Bridgwater bus station used to have one, however, it is now some Turkish diner. There are loads of these in Bridgwater, and they are awful. There are so many of them. Swindon bus station is operated by Stagecoach. As a result, the office is operated by Stagecoach as well. However, you can ask about any bus service. Swindon bus station is great for bus spotting, and the train station is quite good for train spotting. You get a lot of buses, not only at the bus station, but at the railway station as well. Along with that, Stagecoach West operate a lot of Dennis Tridents in this area, so unlike in Somerset where Stagecoach barely operate anymore, or in Bristol where most of the vehicles are MMCs or Scanias, you will find quite a lot of interesting and old vehicles. As well as Stagecoach, Swindon's bus companies also operate some unique buses, such as the Scania Wright Solars, and for example, this amazing Scania Omnidecker, which there are very few left of. A lot of them have either been scrapped or sent to Daymori coaches. Speaking of unique, here is my next bus arriving into Swindon bus station, which is a minibus on the 47 service to take me all the way to Lambourne, which is a tiny village in the middle of Berkshire, which nobody has ever heard of. I think it's on the border of Wiltshire and Berkshire, since the service is operated by West Berkshire Council. Anyway, we left bang on time at 13:45.
Yeah, just give a check. Just give it a quick. Thank you.
Here I am passing through Swindon's famous Magic Roundabout. I've passed through the Magic Roundabout before when sampling the Swindon bus network in regular buses. However, I think it was more fun and more chaotic trying to pass through this area in a minibus. To be honest with you, I don't really know why we don't have more minibuses, especially in Somerset. A lot of rural routes are axed without thinking about putting a minibus on the route instead of putting a massive double-decker on the service unless it is operated by the council. When we departed Bridgwater earlier, I mentioned that a lot of services served hospitals. For example, this tiny service which hardly anybody uses serves the Great Western Hospital on the outskirts of the town. Here I am arriving into the centre of Lambourne at Market Square. There goes that West Berkshire Council Mercedes-Benz Sprinter Trekker Mobility Plus minibus on the 47 back to Swindon, approximately 6 minutes late. Now what I find funny is that I'm pretty sure you can only operate a public service now if the bus does not have a step entrance, yet that minibus clearly had a step entrance. However, it might be because at the back I'm pretty sure if you need assistance the driver can deploy some sort of ramp which comes out. I'm not really too sure. I just find it strange that it has a step entrance. Anyway, after 45 minutes of waiting in this tiny little village, I mean it wasn't that small, but there wasn't really much to do, I got on my next bus, which was this Newbury and District ADL Enviro 200 MMC on the 4 service, which I will be taking all the way to the final stop at Newbury. Newbury and District is operated by the Reading and Courtney Buses Group, which is an amazing group and to be honest has set bus standards for the rest of the UK. They have amazing buses and the seats are really comfy and it just has everything that you want a bus to have. We'll be seeing more great buses later on when we travel with Reading buses. As for now, we're on this Newbury and District Enviro 200 MMC, which was alright. It wasn't really anything special apart from the seats.
This is Route 4 towards Newbury. East Sheffield Telephone Exchange.
Freddie, that is enough. Stop. Leave me alone, then. I wasn't talking to you, I was talking to you.
Here I am arriving into Newbury Town Centre on Park Way. This is the main street in and out of Newbury Town Centre. I quite like this area around the town centre. It has a few nice parks, it has the new Newbury Wharf bus station, and there are a lot of shops, especially on Park Way. Here we are arriving at the so-called new bus station. It looks pretty new, but I'm not actually sure if it's new or if it's a few years old. It provides plenty of space for buses to manoeuvre, and it has quite a nice waiting area for passengers. As you can see, Newbury District have recently repainted most of their fleet and gotten rid of some of their older vehicles, most notably the Wright street lights, which used to wear the old black and green livery. Nowadays, most of their fleet wears a black, green and grey livery, which I quite like and suits most of the buses, especially the new Enviro 200 MMCs. After a 12-minute stopover at Newbury Wharf bus station, here comes my next bus to take me on the 1 hour and 40-minute ride to central Reading near the railway station. This is one of Reading Bus's many ADL Enviro 400 city vehicles. These Enviro 400 cities are really nice. I've heard good things about all of them across the country. However, Reading Buses with all of their buses tend to do exceptionally well with branding and design in the interior. This Enviro 400 city had tables, USB ports, really comfy seats like all of the Reading Buses, Newbury District and Thames Valley Buses vehicles. And as well as that, I think the Enviro 400 cities are just really nice vehicles.
Next.
Like I mentioned a minute ago, these had a really nice interior, had comfy seats and had tables, unlike the First West of England gas Enviro 400 cities. I do believe Reading Buses do have some gas Enviro 400 cities, however I didn't manage to get on any of them when I went to Reading a bit later on. Anyway, we left Newbury Wharf bang on time, and we also left Park Way bang on time at 16:20. From here onwards, it took quite a while to get into central London. However, most of the buses, apart from the very last bus, were Enviro 400 cities. So I would skip this part of the video if you don't like these vehicles. Personally, I really do like them. They have a nice interior, comfy seats, and they look quite nice and stylish on the outside. I'll be taking this all the way to central Reading near the railway station, which takes nearly 2 hours. Here I am arriving at my third hospital on this trip, which is the West Berkshire Community Hospital. A lot of these hospitals are community hospitals. For example, the Bridgwater Hospital is a community hospital. I don't think the Great Western Hospital in Swindon is a community hospital though. I also forgot to mention that Reading buses tend to brand and colour their buses. For example, the Route 1, which I'm currently on, between Newbury and Reading, is known as the Jet Black route. My next bus, which will take me from Reading to Bracknell, is known as the Lion 4 route, and a lot of the park and ride routes in Reading, along with just routes in general, have a lot of branding. For example, there are buses called the Little Oranges, and the route to the university is called the White Knight and the Claret.
Next stop, Hereford Drive. Next stop, Highcroft Kennels.
Here we are passing
Next
the
stop,
small village of
Hilford
Wokingham,
Cottages.
which is where Midgham Station is located, which is the least used station in Berkshire. Well, at least I think it is. It may have changed now. Midgham Station was not called Woolhampton Station, or it might have been originally, but it isn't called Woolhampton
Next stop,
Station now because
Leavenworth
people
Road.
would have gotten confused with Woolhampton and the much bigger Wolverhampton.
Stop, Station Road.
As we pass that claret-branded ADL in 500 MMC, here we are arriving into Reading town centre. To be honest with you, I think Reading should become a city. It's pretty much like a city, at least in the city centre, and is very similar to a lot of other cities which are actually cities, not towns, in England. Anyway, there goes that Enviro 400 city on the 1 service, heading around to Reading station where the service picks up to head back to Newbury. Reading buses are not the only operator to serve Reading though, pretty obvious. Thames Valley buses, who are also operated by the Reading and Courtney buses group, also operate into Reading, as well as that Carousel buses and Thames Travel operate into Reading. Both of those are operated by Go Ahead Group. Although most of the vehicles in the Reading buses fleet are branded, there are a few vehicles like this ADL Enviro 400 MMC that wear the standard grey livery. Here is one of Reading buses' unique ADL Enviro 400s. These buses used to be ADL Enviro 400Hs, however they have been converted to standard Enviro 400s, and here is another Enviro 400 City. Here is one of the gas-powered Scania K270UD ADL Enviro 300 SG gas buses. I quite like these, and there are loads of these around Reading, and I don't think any other places in the UK have these gas-powered Enviro 300s. They're very unique and are the fastest type of bus in the UK, with the fastest bus in the world being a gas-powered Enviro 300 that does operate with Reading buses. I did actually see it at my time in Reading. If you want to see the world's fastest bus, feel free to go and watch my Buses in Reading video. There is a large variety of vehicles. Speaking of a large variety of vehicles, my next bus was not a large variety, it was another Enviro 400 City. Although I quite like these buses, after going on 4 in a row, they do become a little bit repetitive. Not as repetitive as the Enviro 400 MMCs though, those get really boring. This time on this Enviro 400 City, I decided to sit on the top deck, and I'll be taking this Lion branded vehicle on the Lion 4 service to Bracknell via Wokingham. Here I am passing Wokingham railway station. After the outskirts of Reading, the bus got quite empty, which I was quite surprised about. Then again though, you do have the train service which is quicker between Reading, Wokingham and Bracknell. Here we are passing another gas-powered Enviro 300, this time on the Wokingham town service.
Next stop, Wordsworth. Next stop, Horse and Groom.
Here I am arriving into Bracknell bus station, which is one of the major hubs on the Thames Valley buses network. Here I'd be leaving Reading buses and jumping on the Flightline 703 service, which is operated by Thames Valley buses, and you guessed it, uses more Enviro 400 cities. I'm starting to get a bit tired of these now. Bracknell bus station at first looks like quite a small bus station, a bit similar to Bridgwater bus station in a way, a massive bus station, but it gets hardly any bus services. However, after a little while, a lot of the town services operated by Thames Valley buses started to arrive on their second to last and last journeys of the day. Thank you. Here is my Thames Valley buses ADL Enviro 400 City arriving at stand 1 at Bracknell bus station on the 703, the Flightline service bound for Heathrow Terminal 5. Although it's known as the Flightline, it's also advertised that the service is known as the Windsor Express. However, there wasn't really much about Legoland, which is one of the places that this route serves. Here we are leaving Bracknell bus station a few minutes early, around 8 o'clock in the evening.
Next stop, Bay Road.
Legoland Windsor Resort. This is the only Legoland theme park in the UK and is very, very famous for being the only Legoland theme park in the UK and being one of the best theme parks in the UK, considering that the UK doesn't really have very many theme parks, to be honest. Now, I think more people actually got on at the Legoland staff entrance stop than the Legoland main entrance stop. So I'm not too sure if Legoland was actually open at the moment to people or if it was just open to staff members. I'm not too sure really. However, at this point, it was quite dark and the green lighting inside the bus was a bit much. Anyway, here we are passing through Windsor town centre. You can't really see much. I was hoping to get a shot of Windsor and Eton Central Station, however, I was sat on the wrong side of the bus, and at the time, I didn't even realise. Here I am arriving into Slough, Wellington Street, which is where most of the buses arrive and depart in Slough, since there is no bus station and Wellington Street is located fairly close to the railway station. Here I disembark the bus and wait for the 7:02 London line service, which would take me on the final step into London, and this would be my second to last bus of the night. The second to last bus of the whole adventure, arriving into Wellington Street in Slough Town Centre, which was another Envir400 city operated by Thames Valley Buses, this time on the 7:02 London line service. This vehicle once again had freezing cold air conditioning and very intense green mood lighting. I'll be taking this a few stops short of London Victoria Coach Station at Hyde Park Corner. Slough town. This part of the M4 is notorious for road accidents and roadworks, and quite often, especially at night, the M4 between the two Slough junctions are closed. I'm not too sure why. Anyway, tonight though it seems like there are no roadworks, and it's a straight run into the centre of London. It was quite fun being on a double-decker bus going along the motorway, and especially in Somerset, there are more and more buses starting to travel along the motorway, especially in North Somerset, around Weston-super-Mare, Portishead and Bristol. This bus driver was extremely fast and was giving it all he could towards London city centre, and we were actually overtaking cars in the second or third lane along this 4-lane motorway. Which is very nice, but is also very luxurious and extremely expensive. You'll fall off your own feet just looking at the prices in the entrance of the shop, let alone on the 5th floor. Which is Hyde Park Corner on the outskirts of the centre of London, and is obviously located next to Hyde Park on the corner, albeit it's not really a corner. Anyway, there goes my second to last bus on its way to London Victoria coach station, and now I had to wait for my last bus of the day. Just before we get on my last bus of the day, can I just point out that only 12.4% of you have subscribed. I put in a lot of hard work into these videos, and to be honest I get quite stressed about it, so I'd appreciate it if more of you could subscribe. However, I don't like forcing people to subscribe, so it's completely up to you. And thank you to the 12.4% of you who have subscribed, and honestly, thank you to all of you for supporting the channel, especially recently when I've gone to Cornwall and been out and about on the electric buses in North Somerset. Those types of videos have gotten loads and loads of views, so thank you very much for supporting the channel. I don't get paid to do this, I do it as a hobby because I enjoy filming. I just hate the editing part. I get so stressed and worked up over it, especially since I don't have a script. Anyway, if you haven't worked it out by now, my last bus of this entire adventure at 10 past 10 at night is a new route master. I was hoping for a slightly different type of bus, considering that when I looked earlier in the week to see what type of bus this would be, I'm pretty sure it said that quite often you get Wright Street Decks or Wright Gemini 3s on the route. Well, at least it's a bus, and today no buses have been cancelled and barely any buses have been late, and none of them have been more than about 10 minutes late at a time. So anyway, just before we get to Trafalgar Square, thank you very much for watching this video, and keep an eye out on the YouTube channel for my buses in Reading video, and also there will be a slightly different video coming in the near future. Anyway, let's head on now to Trafalgar Square, which is traditionally known as the centre of London. Well everybody, whether you've subscribed or not, or if you've watched any of my videos, or if this is the first one, or if this will be the last one because you absolutely hate me, here we are at Trafalgar Square, traditionally known as the centre of London. So I'd just like to finish the video off here. Thank you very much for watching this video. This is something I've wanted to do for a very long time, and if it's possible, could I try to get from London to Birmingham by local bus in 24 hours? If I should, please comment below, because it's something I'd like to try and do. I know though that Bridgwater to Penzance by local bus can be done, so let's see if I can do that in 2026. Anyway, thank you very much for your support and watching the video. I do enjoy making these videos, it's just editing them once I've gotten home after being stuck on a train for 5.5 hours. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye everyone!